We are especially excited to kick things off with this next conversation featuring Barry Dixon of Barry Dixon Interiors and Keith Summerour, founder of Summerour Architects. Together, they're going to explore the art of collaboration in design. Without further ado, please join me in welcoming Barry and Keith.
Thank you.
Thank you. Can everybody hear us? We did do mic checks, so we're both very, very honored to be here with our friends and our associates in the design world, because one of the probably most fun things that Barry and I do is collaborate. And collaboration in our worlds is something that started maybe around 2013 or 14. And we were invited by a fledgling group called the DLN, right? The Design Leadership Network.
They were pretty new then.
Brand new. There was only 7 of us, I think, or 9 of us. And at that particular period of time, and this isn't, my wife Stephanie always says my stories are too long. Too bad, I have the mic today. At that particular period of time, Magid Riyadh was relatively new to Atlanta with Marmy, and Judy Talley was relatively new, and the DLN was relatively new. And Magid was nice enough to host this first DLN conference in Egypt. And when we all agreed to do it, the Arab Spring had not happened. And so I think it was 3 weeks after Arab Spring, we were due to be in Cairo. And all the rest of the world decided not to go to Egypt because of all the pictures you saw on television. It looked like complete carnage, just like Portland, Oregon is now. Complete carnage. Chicago, just like Chicago. Yeah. Anyway, we, I don't know why we decided, but we said, heck, let's just go. And so I'll show you this first picture here of us back in our glory days.
Floating down the Nile.
Floating down the Nile. This is in Aswan. This was 2014 or 15. And it turned out to be really, it was Bill Peace, Juan Poggi out of Miami, Judy, Beth Webb, and
Peace.
Bill Peace.
Bill Peace with us. And Peter Block.
And we were the few to show up. And we really forged our early bond and relationship there, because as we spent time together doing these amazing things and seeing these amazing science sites without anybody in Egypt. I mean, there was only a few Germans in a pool, if I remember, and we played chicken with them.
There was no one in the hotels. They were empty.
Yeah, totally empty.
Except for us.
And all the sites, Luxor and all those places were completely empty. And so we were able to really be ourselves and talk amongst ourselves about these new things that we were seeing. So out of this relationship, we really learned that we liked a lot of the same things, and we liked a lot of different things too. I would do sketches like you see here, a sketch of Felucca that we were on in the Nile, and then there's a scene of Venice there. But the other thing that's really been enduring for Barry and I is we both have an amazing love for farm living. Barry lives on an amazing, amazing historic farm in Warrenton, Virginia. And if you're ever lucky enough to go visit, I would definitely do it. But one of the things that Barry taught me that I've tried to carry forth in everything that I do is his absolute love of nature and how nature informs his design. And so I'd love you to talk a little bit about that, because I think that's really the jumping off point for pretty much everything we've done up to today.
Well, and I'm certainly not the first one to think of this. I mean, you'd have to go back to ancient history. Everyone knows that The natural world around us is what inspires everything that human beings create. There are the 4 building blocks of the natural world, the elements, earth, air, fire, and water, and we see those in everything that we look at. If you look at, this is a scene from my farm, and you see sky, you see water, you see earth, you see the things that grow from one under the other. Since that's what everything in nature is composed of, we feel that composition should be recognized indoors as well. And we bring that to the party. We have a connotation, whether it's a color, if it's a medium, if it's stone, if it's wood, if it's the color of water, color of air, if it's translucent. We bring basically the abstraction of those 4 elements through the windows and doors into our home, so that the home that we're working on seems rooted in place and belongs where it is. You see different views through different windows, and it's really important to be cognizant of that. And the shell, the house that is built in that place needs to erupt from that ground and be built with what seems indigenous to that space, and that has to be honored with the dressings that we then apply to the shell inside.
So my farm that many of you have been to, I hope you can attend the farm party that R. Hughes is sponsoring in a couple of weeks, is that. The stones from the buildings are from the property. And I was doing that in 2005, and then Barry and I met in 2014, and we're like, wait a minute, we're doing the same stuff. And even to the point, like these 2 slides right here demonstrate, this is a painting of a thundercloud last summer at my farm, and Barry was designing a mirror based on that.
Well, again, we're looking at air and cloud form. That is that other element. And this was, I think, my 8th collection for our terriers. And that cumulonimbus cloud rising, strangely, without even knowing that we were doing one and the other, we kind of came up with things at the same time. But it proves that you're simpatico with someone who's thinking along the lines that you're already imagining things in the design process, without always that conversation, until you see the products that you've created independently, and you realize that there's sort of a karmic connection that you have. We don't have this with every architect or designer. We don't have this with every showroom. I feel like a connection safe to the R. Hughes showroom and what they show here. So when we find those partners, when the kismet of that situation arises in our careers and falls into our path, we recognize it and we travel that path together. I think is a good way to describe it.
And beyond the collaboration of interior designer and landscape architect, there's another collaborator that you really have to have, and that's the client. And the client comes to you for various reasons. Maybe it's, in our case, starts out technical. You need to get a permit, and you need to get something built and find a builder. But as you start to work with that client one-on-one, you start to learn things about them that really starts to make you think, well, who is the right person for them to work with to really fill this project out? And so and we're going to talk about several projects like that, as we have started to work together, we're realizing that collaboration is not just us two. It's bringing the builder along, bringing the right craftspeople along to your project to elevate the project in ways that the local builder, and most of our projects are in pretty remote places, so the local builder may not have a Ron Kelly who can do spectacular ironwork, or someone to do an Aigle-Massey panel, or a Canoe Valley slate roof. They may not have access to that. So our collaboration then starts to build over time with all of these other people, and it's really like a chef and their ingredients. And once you put all of those elements together, it tends to just get better and better and better projects, because if you have a really great project and a client really sees that project and says, I'd love to have something like that, then it elevates again, and so you keep building on that one after another. So we're going to talk a little bit about hand drawing and what it means to us, but what it also means to our clients. And probably most of you have access to all the latest computer rendering programs that are just absolutely incredible, fabulous things. We love it. But it's interesting that our clients tend to respond most directly to hand drawings. Sitting in front of a client in a collaborative fashion, listening to what they have to say, Barry listening to me, I listen to Barry, the builder, the different tradespeople.
And we listen to the client.
And we listen and really reflect off of that. So this is a drawing, a hand drawing that Barry did over one of our plans for a very sizable project in Fort Worth, Texas. And Barry, maybe you want to talk a little bit about how this plan developed.
Well, again, we talk about the structure and the landscape that leads to that structure in the early part of this process. What I like to do is measure out myself. We've all got staffs now, after you've had your company a few years, that could do all of this stuff and lay it out. I have to really get into the project that I've already started getting into with the meetings with the architect, and also an understanding of the property and the views from the windows. I like to lay things out. I like to know and measure every wall myself. I know that the pair of walls left and right in that living room before I go into the hallway are 65 inches wide. When I go to make the furniture selections, if I've just input all this into a computer and use some sort of plan to lay out really, I think, a more simplistic space plan, I won't come up with the more nuanced arrangements of furnishing. The large room in the center of this, I remember thinking I have to divide, you see that large horizontal rectangle sort of as you go through the entrance and toward the back of this. That's the large bow-ceilinged, barrel vaulted ceiling with fireplaces on each side. And I knew we were going to have to part the Red Sea and have a walkway to get through to the garden that is pulling us visually through this envelope of spaces. And I had to have different seating arrangements. Symmetry is easy, and symmetry is formal. And we don't always want even our formal rooms to feel overtly formal. So you have to find balance with asymmetry. I'll take a rectangular room like that, and I divide it into 4 quadrants. And I imagine if that was on a raft and everything was put on that raft, would it sink toward one corner or one side, or would it float evenly? And it's really important to me to get the balance that way, erase, redraw, figure out what I have to do. Even the microcosm of taking a large cocktail table that we're designing as a custom piece and fracturing it so that there was a river running through that stone and breaking that up, rather than just using a rectangular coffee table I found at a showroom. Sometimes we drive our wonderful showrooms a little bit crazy through the customization process of making things the way we want them done for this client. But you're always rewarded for the extra effort in the end. And it does take it away from being more than just a beautiful showroom or a lobby at a beautiful hotel. It becomes a realm for life for these people that you have considered very specifically that is suited to what the architect has created and where we're building.
I think it's important to note that, at least in our case, the initial plan is very fluid, and the furniture plan is really almost, if not first, the second thing that happens, so that the architecture can morph and bend around this raft. And I'm going to sort of go to the next slide, which is a hand drawing of the exterior of this home. And Barry mentioned briefly about the idea that you're walking through the home and being drawn through to the garden. And you can see from these sketches that I feel very strongly that the garden and the people in the space are really the driver of the design. So if you look at this sketch, you can see this long porch without columns, and you look right into the house. It's nearly all glass, But it's really about the life in the pool. You have somebody out there floating around, having a good time with the margarita, and the fireplace with people sitting around. That life between the furniture plan and the architecture, in my opinion, is one of the things that we have very much in common, or have grown together in this sense that it's how you live in the space. And pinging back and forth with the client makes for these really special projects. So let's just jump to some pretty pictures, and then we'll talk about that and a little bit more about texture and integration of the outside and the inside. This is a project at Blackberry Farm, and we as a firm have been very fortunate to do most of the work at Blackberry, and it benefited from one of the most important things there, which is most people who come there are coming there for appreciation of a certain type of lifestyle, food and entertainment. And so we have, as farm owners, blended into that world nicely, but also brought something unique to a place that is mostly folks who stay just a couple of days. Well, the two projects we're going to show you are homes where people live there or have lived there most of the time. So this particular project is important to note with both of these pictures that at Blackberry, the architecture is really secondary to lifestyle. And so if you think about what I just talked about earlier about the furniture plan and lifestyle and really promoting the right type of lifestyle, that is what we have been doing at Blackberry. The architecture is semi-important, but less important than the feeling you have on the outside of these tucked-in buildings and the inside spaces where you entertain. As an example, all the kitchens that we've done there have catering kitchens attached to them, or basically big pantries. So it's great. You can call them up and say, hey, bring 6 burgers over, and they bring it in the side door, and it's fantastic. But you can see the architecture here isn't front and center, like you're driving through Habersham Road and you see big, beautiful home. You see these little bits and pieces. And so therefore, what Barry and I were able to do is to think more about texture and the texture of things on the outside going towards the inside. So the only thing on this house that you see from the drive is the porte-cochere. But once you get into this, through this porte-cochere, you start to pick up these layers. You can see this brise-soleil in front of a small window, into this barnwood siding, looking back out this tight little entrance drive. And then you're in this incredible courtyard, this world that we've created of privacy for clients who are living in a hotel, if you think about it, right? So they've got people, their favorite thing to do is get a glass of wine, drive down the road, and rubberneck at the people who live there. So we created this insular world in an extrovert place. And I'm going to let Barry start to talk about how he took this and started to pull these ideas inside.
Well, I tell clients that our interiors start when you turn into the drive, because what we have inside the house when you walk through the front door has to relate and be in harmony with what you expect, and at the same time, it needs, in the best instances, to transcend what you might expect, but it has to be related. It has to be logical aesthetically and from an abstractive perspective. Textures, materials. When you saw that house, didn't that when you saw the way it erupted from that terrain and that earth, you got that feeling that house belonged there, that it had grown up out of that land like the trees had. And with the courtyards that we're doing, because we've done that with multiple projects at Blackberry, I think that we're also creating the human space within the wilderness too, that we're sort of fostering with that tamed area inside the courtyard or the protected environment that we have that isn't the wilderness beyond that, even though we can see the wilderness through all the windows once we're inside. Here, the Sestugavia piece that we love, made out of rope, Christian Sestugavia from Paris. That's the surface of one of the chests that we used in the halls there at the entrance. This house, some of you may recognize this. It ran in milieu, the winter issue, this last winter issue, I think a 16-page pictorial there. And it also ran in Garden and Gun. This ran in a couple of different magazines, different images of it. And you see the stairwell. I mean, Keith crafts these incredible interiors. And with all this reclaimed wood, I think you found a couple of barns and that we salvaged all the wood from those that our clients bought then. So you're bringing the textures of the trees, the natural wood, things that were also weathered by nature in a previous life. Not only did they grow up out of the earth, but they were another structure in another land before they came here for final roosting. This is that stairwell lighting that we designed that we were purchasing from our friends at Art Hughes through our Averett line. Now,
And I have to say, I was like, what are you doing? Putting this modern light through this, and I was like, okay, I guess I trust him. But it's spectacular because you have these two worlds kind of coming together, and when it drops through the vertical shaft of light, which this stair connects all 3 floors, it's extra special. I mean, if this were an iron chandelier from England, it would be okay. But like this has that little magic that makes it great when you collaborate with somebody who has different ideas than you. And you go through the process of, like wondering about it, and then you see it and you're like, whoa, okay, this is a whole new standard in design.
and you think, how does this relate to the view? Because at night, we're not in the city, we're out in the country, we're up in the mountains, up high in the night sky. The constellations of stars and planets come into our home through that 3-story window in that tower at night. And these are the luminous bodies in that. So, because we don't live in a house only in the day, we live there at night, we have to consider that. Look at the views, though, that were kept open to the wilderness that we were talking about. We consider some of these homes glamorous tree houses that we're building in the Smoky Mountains there. We've tamed them with paneled walls and beautiful furnishings. These particular clients didn't want any real color. They wanted texture, but they didn't want, they wanted only natural colors, light to dark. And that was one of the directives. You'll see another one coming up later where they did want color, but we do listen to them. We look at we found a stone there that looks like the Milky Way for that cosmos quality for all the hone stones that we used.
And you did that leathered too, right?
We had it leathered
yeah.
and, well, of course, we always do at least honed. We don't ever use a reflective surface other than glass or mirror. But with stone, we want to feel that. And the leathering, to me, I get the worn topographical feel of the earth from outer space. I love that. Or from a plane when you look down on Firma Terra or Terra Firma. It relates to me in some way like that.
Well, it's textural too.
And we brought the world to the mountain too. That old map of Paris sitting on a beam up above the fireplace here in the keeping room. The bedroom, which they wanted very light, neutral colors, so we used the foggy tones that we see in the Smoky Mountains. There are plenty of those, especially in the early hours of the morning and certain times of the year. So the room was inspired here by air and fog, the colors and the palette. This incredible bathroom that Keith designed with one of our wall coverings.
Yeah, this was another one of my moments of like, Barry wanted to do these mirrors all over around the sink. And I was like trying to figure it out, like what are you going to see and how's that going to work? And I mean, it just turned it magical because there's 2 sinks that match each other across there, and you feel glamorous, but it's also really grounded because you see the views from outside coming in.
Mirrors are only a reflection of what they're near.
You do a lot of that too.
I do a lot of mirror, and it's never for mirror's sake. It's for reflection of other things. We did this Shishuggi burned, crackled Japanese finish on the walls here.
That was with all the dollar bills we burnt.
That's right. Or that our clients were burning. We did strike the match, though.
So here's a great example of your mirror to the floor thing, which I had never seen before this
We
project.
call them portal mirrors. It's almost like it
Yeah.
continues because we don't put a base across that.
Yeah,
It just
I love
reflects the floor. You'll see noggin prints on the mirrors after the, But smart people only do that once or twice. Dumb people do it over and over. But we love that you can create space. Again, smoke and mirror, fog and mirror, whatever we want to call it. There's smoke coming up here out of this. There was a natural outcropping that Keith spied. This is, again, on the backside of the house. And we decided that would be a great place for fire. We thought, did Indians build fires under this centuries ago, Native Americans? And so we decided to put a fireplace, and I found these toadstool chairs, and our client loves to bring a bottle of mezcal down there, light a fire with the smoky mezcal and the smoky fire going. I've sat down there with him several times with the.
Well, I think the significance of these two pictures is that the design process, at least in our view as firms, never stops. So just because it's on a piece of paper doesn't mean that that's actually the end result. And in this particular case, we were working on this project and our client wanted another place away from the house. And we did spy this stone and we went down there and we thought, gosh, this would be fantastic to do a fire pit there. But that led the client towards being actually more excited about the project, because one of the things I've learned is in that moment of change is when you can get the most good out of a project, which is good for the client, it's good for the design process. And so these are a couple of images that are a good example of this. The image on the left, in the architectural drawings, there wasn't a niche there. But I think she had a collection you were trying to place of some things.
She had been to, this was a world-class traveler, and she'd flown all over the world, done multiple around the world trips on a private plane, and she'd sent crates home from Bhutan, from Burma, from Malaysia, from the Himalayas, and she had all of these Buddhist bells and things. She had a collection of them. And you look at the plan and you say, oh, we'll do a lantern on each side of an entranceway. Here we had designed a custom gate that you'll probably see a little bit later, because this is a different project than the other one. This is one that is not far from the other that we'd started with. But we wanted to honor her collections and her things, and this was a place where we could just put a down light in a niche, and you could have the bell there illuminated instead of just a lantern each side of the door into these little stone pockets that Keith and team carved out of that exterior entrance. And this is what you see from the woods. You go down a gravel pathway, sort of like when you saw the gravel drives that went into the courtyard. Then you go through the space, and then these little gravel walkways tendril into the woods themselves. There's this into the woods moment on the back of the house with smaller little pathways that take you to more intimate spaces in the wilderness. And so it continues as you go through the realm of the home itself. This is on the backside of this other home that we did that's upcoming in another magazine.
So the point that we were able to make with the client is we're not done just because we did the drawings. We're here to support the more refined and more interesting pieces, the personal pieces, into the home. And this image on the right is really fun because we were basically standing down in the dirt one day and decided it would be a really great spot to have a place to have a drink or to have dinner. And so we designed this rail system out of curbing stones of granite that are bolted into the side of the stair. But then you can see off to the right this little black piece of steel rail. And the artist that Barry brought, a guy named Ron Kelly, brought this whole nother level. Like I know we think we know really good design, and then you meet somebody who just takes it to a whole nother level. And Ron is one of those people. And this we'll have another picture of that rail later, but this gate is a great example of travel, an artist, working with Barry, understanding these things. And this particular house, she's a very private person. We created a courtyard for arrival. And so we wanted to do a gate that had some transition between the the place where people drink wine and look at you, and the woods, and this private spot. And I said, you know, this reminds me very much of Peggy Guggenheim's gate in Venice. And that particular gate has these little, like, crystals or something woven into this mesh. And Barry knew exactly what I was talking about. Like, he was like, oh, yeah, I know exactly that. And after that, you took it to this level, and this begins the journey.
We didn't need
home.
the fancy crystals that were perfect in Venice on a Grand Canal, but I had, not long before that, done the Fortuny showroom in Venice.
Oh, that's right. We went
and
to
I had
tour
worked on that for 2.5 years.
Spectacular.
And so I had to be in Venice every month for like 2.5 years when it was on
Spectacular project.
all snow, under snow or iced or filled with tourists or completely empty or flooded or not or whatever. And again, travel is one of the greatest things that you, as a designer, as an architect, as a creator, the more you travel, the more that you can create. You can't overspend on traveling because it's continuing your education. And the more things that someone can just tell you like that in a conversation that you already know because you've been there. We're working with this client in Fort Worth, and they were saying, well, we just got back from Marrakesh, and we love these tiles. And we said, were you at the Royal Mansour? Because that's where I had taken all the
That's where we had dinner.
That's
that
where
night.
we were. We were at one of those tiles, and I said, are they these? And I pulled them off my phone. And now we've called San Francisco. We're having all these made for a sunken. They added the conservatory later, which we decided this week on a Zoom meeting would be with DJ. That would be a sunken sort of Turkish bath pool that would be the floor of the conservatory, and we put the tables and chairs on that with the tile work. The more you travel, and especially if you're working with worldly clients, the more that you can complete their visions and their ideas. It's just an arsenal of understanding that you acquire over a period of time.
That's a good way of putting it. This picture here is interesting because in the background is that Peggy Guggenheim gate, and then here's this outside private courtyard that the house rotates around.
Big fireplace on the right that you can't see. Again, the fire, the water. See, this glass looks like water. It's like the surface, so they're bringing those elements in even with glass.
But this glass floor wasn't designed into the original plans.
Right.
What we designed into the original plans was really cool. This is a house, never done this before, where no finish touches another finish. So if you have a plaster wall, it stops short 4 to 6 inches before you get to a wood beam, or if the fireplaces are completely freestanding. And as a result, the house has this sense, it's undefinable sense of freedom or continuing interest because of light piercing through little slits in walls that are fireplaces that delineate space. So the previous picture was going across a glass foyer. The glass we put in to bring light down into a wine cellar, which was the landing of the stair that goes downstairs. So we kind of mashed all that up together. But then when you turn around, look at this.
If you stood and took that other picture and you just turned 180 degrees, this is the picture you take. One looks into the courtyard. This looks through the main large central living space with a big stone fireplace that also was completely free around it. It didn't touch the walls around it. So you could walk around the stone chimney stack. And almost, you know, you've seen those old chimney stacks that were left in the woods after a house burned down 200 years ago?
Well, that was the idea.
That's where the idea came from. And it was standing there, but it's like we had built a new house around it, and yet you're looking through that into that other wilderness on the other side. And what did we bring to that? We did a custom Tibetan rug that I designed and had made through Odegaard. We have Fortuny. We were talking about Fortuny in Italy, and the client was very worldly. We have Fortuny upholstered pieces. We had a lot of stuff from R. Hughes with the Junho, our favorite pieces that we got from Ryan and the guys that were the chairs in the middle. The lighting here, Hallworth and Heavens. Again, that cosmos feeling, the moon through the woods, all the moths that are out in the trees at night, the moths go to the flame. Could they fly to the moon and be these bronze moths on the moon? That became a center point hovering above the fireplace that we can see here from the kitchen, because our client is a real chef, and she wanted to be able to almost have a kitchen as theater, so we did draperies that'll open that you'll see to that, but she wanted to see beautiful things while she was cooking. She wanted to see the fire through that. She wanted this almost like barn there's a quality that I think is a sanctuary, almost a sort of a church-like feel that I get with that apex, especially with that rustic, all these beams, all this rustic wood that Keith found for that. Here's that fireplace that stands freely in space. And there's a great picture on the right of that glass bridge, if you will, that now illuminated our stone walls below. It wasn't so dark down there. You go into a wine cellar library, a tunnel, and then it opens into a large media room on the lower level. And this brought natural light all the day long into that stairwell space, so you didn't just have to illuminate that or be walking into the darkness. There's that, and these can open and close. There's a sheer, basically it's a theatrical curtain. She's a serious pianist too. She's got her piano there. And then there's the stove right behind the piano. We bring these big limbs in because, again, we're bringing the woods into the house. Whatever the season is, if they're green, this was obviously photographed in the fall, in the spring with dogwood blossoms and cherry blossoms. The home lives for the seasons that we're in inside.
And I think it was fun you brought in those decorative heat lamps, that, really, it's kind of just fun.
Apparatus from Mark Hughes again, with those great porcelain chains that float above our island.
Love the mood of the pantry and her little study there, but each one of the door to the left opens to the front courtyard, so you never feel like you're stuck in one place. You can keep moving throughout the home. And this was another great example of collaboration of the design. We talked about how we didn't want any finishes to touch. Well, the bed actually floats in the middle of the room, surrounded by the headboard, which is also upholstered. And this oval in the middle is a direct line of sight back outside again. And you have that as one of your experiments in your lovely home.
And you've got one too now at the
Yes,
farm. We've got
yes,
one there.
I
And if you look back at that previous picture, the client there, because again, listen to the client. I remember asking her, what do you want the feel of the bedroom? We were talking about all the elements, and she said, I'd love to wake up in almost heaven, like in the clouds. And this particular room was situated at the highest point of the house on a corner with sky views.
Light on three sides.
Basically, there was light on three sides of that. So we did an into the sky, cloud-inspired palette for the sort of these heavenly pale blues and cloudy, foggy colors and silvers and off-whites that we played in that space. And that's the bathroom. Off of that, we carved out of one block of a big boulder of the same stone we were using on the floor from Marmy stone. We had the tub carved out of that. And Keith came up with this idea because the client really she thought how wonderful it would be if she could almost first it started with an outdoor shower, and she said, well, can you imagine an outdoor tub? He did these telescoping walls, glass doors that close off for the winter months. During the summer, she'll leave that open, but she's soaking in her tub there with a privacy wall in a little garden with there's a font there in front of a green wall. It's aligned if you were looking at the space.
Wasn't that your idea, though, to do the corner windows? Right
it was. Well, I got
Yeah.
I got it from Frank Lloyd Wright. He did a lot of corner windows. But and since that picture, we also got for privacy, we did the Ron Kelly LED sliding things because we added those later.
Right.
We'll know there needs to be a handrail, but we may not have that design like the one you saw with the stone staircase outside, or we'll know there needs to be something. But a lot of that sort of evolves. There are those last things that you've really been inspired as you've been doing site visits to finish off, your icing on the cake, if you will, as you bake it.
One of my new discoveries is, y'all are going to laugh at me because there's a lot of interior designers here, but this thing called hospital track. And Barry used it on the ceiling here with this high gloss finish to take the drapery all the way up around the bed and the room right to the ceiling. And then the reflection goes
Up another story.
Up another story, so you never feel like you're enclosed or you're in this.
And you had 12-foot ceilings here anyway, but when it's sunny and that reflects, the drapery panels were 24 feet long. They're just it's ripple fold drapery track that we're embedding into, in this case, the plaster, and then we did a high gloss lacquer finish on that with this chinoiserie wall covering that we'd use in this guest bedroom at the site, that she wanted to be a pale blush color. Her daughter loved that color, and that was going to be her room when she visited.
Well,
So
I just
again,
love the quality of light and the reflection through there, and you can see the glass bringing light through the building.
Jennifer Hughes shot all those pictures. She's really, really good.
So this is the architecture of this building, which is really just a H-shaped, one-story building. It has a lower level. But we purposely did not want this building to be seen from the road, and what you saw wanted to be background. But when you get closer, I learned something on this project that we now use as a standard, is if you looked at the previous project, the barnwood was stripy, right? You saw lots of stripes, and that can be interesting. But we wanted something much calmer than that. So I asked the supplier how to do that, and he said, well, what we need to do is when we buy a barn, I'll take down the wood from each exposure and stack it together. So on the north side of the barn, all the wood will look the same, and we're going to stack that together. And the south side, the east side, the west side. And we put it up on this house in the exact same exposure. So when you look at this facade, you don't see stripes. It's just very calm. But each side of the house has a different color of wood. Same barn, same wood, it's just different. But we just had that extra thought level of, well, let's just don't buy 3 barns and mix it all up. Let's buy 1 barn and then work backwards to the project. And let that type of subtlety be the specialness of the project.
It's like it weathered in place. It was like it had been there forever.
Yeah,
And that's how it weathered,
yeah,
because
and
it was put back
instant.
together the way it had been as a
And
barn.
you probably can't tell, but this is one side of the house, and then this is the other side of the house, and the wood is much more golden on the south side of the house. The picture on the right is really fun because that's that stair that we ended up creating, but there's these 2 lovely panels she bought from.
Those came from Morocco, and they were terracotta. And what we did is we put antique mirror behind them, and we embedded them into that stone wall. We've got this long banquette that
for
we built
votives,
out there,
right? There's little
and we put
votives.
little votive candles in the little, they were pigeonnières. They would have been for basically to entice birds in, for nesting, to collect the eggs, and the pigeons when you needed meat. But we employed them here and lined them up with architectural elements, the 2 columns above. And then Ron Kelly, I drew up what we would like. This is just off the kitchen, and our client is a real serious chef. She owned multiple restaurants, and it's like she wanted to have herbs at her disposal off of the kitchen. So those are all for her, rosemary, basil, all the different herbs that she cooks with and everything in that kitchen with the grand piano next to it, and the paintings, which it's a wonderful way of of living your personal life as theater for a client. We were creating her particular realm, and she sits out and has her coffee. I've had coffee with her out there since we finished this. She likes to sit out there in the mornings and have her coffee right off the kitchen. That door at the end of the alley on the left there goes right into the kitchen, and you can see her herbiers.
My challenge to everyone in this room is not to accept code as what you have to go to. This is a code rail that keeps you from falling over, but it also is an herb garden. And so, at least in our firm, what we try to do is to make things as human as possible. And 42-inch rails isn't that, and 36-inch rails isn't that. So this is an easy way to do that. We have a minute before we take questions and answers. Hopefully we'll have some answers for you. But I included this picture as the end of our talk because this was our first trip to Egypt together, and Marmee hosted us and put us on all these camels, and we rode around the desert. And I found this just magnificent photograph. And off to the left, you see Beth Webb, the daughter of the owner of Marmee, Judy, Tish Mills, myself, Peter, Barry, Magid, and Juan. And we were the brave ones to go on this trip. And I would challenge everybody here to be brave, to reach out to each other, particularly in this day and time in which there's a lot of anger and terrible things happening outside of our design community. Beyond that is a world that I really don't understand, because the world that we've created, the world that we create together, is doing really, really good things. And so we should uplift each other by collaborating with each other, not being fearful of what somebody might take from us, but what we can actually give to the other person. So I'd like to conclude, and Barry, please interject, but with that thought, that this isn't a design world of being separate. This is a design world of being together, particularly today.
It's a design world of sharing, of creating our own creative communities and tribes that are traveling together toward an enlightened aesthetic future and life. We're creating realms for life. I think collaboration among creatives is as old as the pyramids, to look at that pyramid and think about that. I think it's been going on for centuries and millenniums, I'll make that plural. I think that continues. I think you have to look backward to see your way forward, and you need to do, I think that several pairs of eyes looking backward and forward and working together are a lot better than one pair. And there's strength in community and collaboration, and that's what we're here to talk about today. And we welcome your questions and thoughts or interjections on this as we are wrapping this up now. Any questions out there?
We've got a microphone for whoever has a question.
Don't be shy.
Hi. How did you go about establishing these important relationships in the beginning of your career?
Well, I don't know that I was particularly good at it in the beginning of my career. I got started in Atlanta when renovations in Brookhaven kind of paid the bills. And it wasn't until, I would say, midway through my career, and that's fairly recent, I'd like to think, that I've really come to build the tradespeople and also build the confidence in myself to be able to let other people participate at the level that we participate. And I can only fault myself in being interested in principally running a business, building a business, and growing it. I probably would have been much better off if I had been more open earlier in life to some of these type of relationships.
Also, how did you go about finding contractors or companies to properly, how were you able to trust new companies and contractors to be able to execute the visions that you had and that your partners had?
Well, Barry and I sat at the Peach earlier and commiserated about the ones that didn't work out. And if you have those early, you tend to get what I guess my guys call a spidey sense about these things. And I think, at least, I'm not the fastest learner, so maybe it took me a while. But now when you meet somebody, you just kind of know, right? And we've learned, and we have some pretty fun rules now. If you don't, as a builder or maybe a participant in some way, if you're a mean person, well, we just don't want you on the team. And we're going to say it sooner than later. And we will write a client's check back to them at any stage in the process if they're not happy with what we do, because we know at this point, what it takes to get there. And it takes a lot of different things, and particularly patience. So I think you have to kiss some frogs and then know how to look for the princes.
And it's a distillation process over a period of time, I think. I think the longer you go to school, the more you know. And life is school. Graduated from college, you might think you know it all. None of us did. None of us do. Actual actually, I think college is like kindergarten for your career. And you really start the learning process, you start your real education when you start working in that. And the more years you've done it, the more years of experience that you have, the bigger your, I'm going to use an old word, Rolodex is. You're only as good as the people that you're creating with. And basically, in the process of running your business, your company, creating these over and over, I've worked with Ron Kelly now for 32 years. I introduced him to you. There were other people I worked with before Ron Kelly that did that. We don't work with them anymore because then we met Ron Kelly. He taught us things, we taught him things. I've learned so much from Keith. I hope I've been able, it's a barter system. You trade information with your community. It's a really important thing. You're not here just to absorb all of their ideas and take that and like Gollum and run over to a corner now and I'll know everything to do. You are part of a community and you need to share everything you know with everyone. That's the reason I love to do these talks. That's the reason I love to work with kindred spirits in this game that we play and that we get to play over and over with wonderful clients that invite us through the door. And that's how I want to end my career, continually educating myself, continually growing, continually learning, continually sharing, and reaching new levels and echelons. I'm a goat. I'm a Capricorn. I like to climb. I don't like to fall down the hill or go backward. I like to, there's a summit somewhere. And I hope that the best project I do will be the last one I do. Because I hope that I'm growing and learning with everything, every single thing that we look at. And I don't look at any misstep along that path as a failure. I look at it as a learning experience. And I don't dwell on that. I climb the next step. I get back up and do that. And I think that's a great mental state to keep your working life, to pay attention to that. I think it's, don't look back, look up. Don't look back except to understand. Remember, look forward to what you're going toward and go to a higher place each time. Every project we've done, I think, has been better than the last one.
Oh, absolutely.
And that's going to continue.
And more fun, too.
That's right. I can't wait to, one of them you're just seeing in the starting phases. I can't wait to get this one done.
Please, another question? Don't be shy.
One right over here.
Yeah.
Hey, so you guys mentioned that you take inspiration from nature and that traveling is a good way to help you with your design. What are, I guess, some things that have inspired you? Like what have you read or what places have you visited that you think have helped you the most with like building your kind of design style that's signature to you guys?
Well, I don't think there's any one particular place. I actually think it's a big soup of places and things. And when you get presented with an opportunity, somewhere down in that bowl of soup is this thing that you've experienced, and it comes to the surface. There are things like this year, Stephanie and I went to England for 7 weeks. And I studied large-scale landscapes and painted. Stephanie studied cooking at Dalesford Farm. And I would sit at the bar and drink Guinness and eat fish and chips with like 15 pounds of goodness. And there's no one particular thing, but you put it all together and you get put into a position where somebody asks you, well, what should you do? And you say, well, take out all the trees because, like, this is how it's going to be in my mind because I've seen it at this place. So if there were a pinnacle thing that I could think about that really moved me in one direction or another, I would say it would go all the way back to 1985 when my parents scraped together some money and sent me abroad to go to school. And that would be me climbing to the top of the monastery at Fiesole in Florence, Italy, and looking out over that city and saying, this is what I want to be. This is it, right here. This is it. And it's stuck with me the whole time. That first, like, super powerful, I've never seen this before. This is the coolest thing. It's awesome. The history's awesome. And it just continues to give me energy.
I think a lot of times, Sue, you don't even realize that it's filed away in a data bank in your brain, and you don't even know how affected you've been by something. I was really lucky that, even though I'm born in Memphis, Tennessee, and came back to the States after growing up abroad and reacquired my Southern accent when I went to Ole Miss in Tulane, I got to grow up. I lived on every continent before I was out of high school. My father worked for the Rothschild family as their metals expert worldwide. And the Rothschilds had on retainer two great decorators, Renzo Mangiardino, the Italian visionary who worked for the Agnellis, and Nureyev, and more recently in Versace's house, where he died on the steps there in Miami. And David Hicks, the English decorator. One of the two of them had just finished our home on every continent where we were moving. We were moving to India from Argentina, from Kyoto to New Caledonia and the Great Barrier Reef, whatever it was. And I didn't even realize I had all these memories, not only of places, but of living within realms that gifted world-class designers had created for my family that I never would have been exposed to had my dad stayed in Memphis, my mom and dad. But that I got to see, looking from the outside in. I think I absorbed also how these great legendary designers were bringing with the place that we were living on in the earth inside. There was that element. We're living on a beach in the South Pacific here. We're living in Islamabad on the side of a mountain looking out in Pakistan. I'm matriculated in South Africa, and our home was on the then Rhodesian, now Zimbabwean border of the Transvaal, looking at the Drakensberg Mountains. All of that is here, of whatever we get to experience. Through osmosis, you absorb it, and you don't even know that you're absorbing it. Tap into it, remember, and put it together in your own way. The best thing you can have, I think, if it's political, if it's artistic, whatever it is a global perspective, because then you understand how you can bring a worldly element that knows no borders. If you understand the history of design and architecture, you can also transcend borders of time and period. And the more that you can erase the borders and put it all together, the more that you're going to fall into this wonderful chasm of timelessness that allows a room that you've done or a home that you've done. That's my new litmus for something. Well, I like this in 20 years. We look back at our first pictures in our portfolio right out of college and we think, what were we thinking? You know, we've all been there. And our best work is the work that has evolved through time, through our own prism and our own process of manufacturing and abstracting these things into reality. And I think that is the value of exposure. You can't spend too much on that. You can spend way too much on a pair of shoes, I think, or your luggage, but you can't spend too much on your travel and your exposure and your experience.
Okay, 2-minute warning. Last question.
Any other questions?
Katie, any question?
Okay, one more. We got
Brad?
one more.
All right, so design is a iterative process, and there are times where not every idea is a good idea. So can you guys talk about when you do reach an impasse or through that iterative process, through collaboration, you come up with the ultimate solution through problem solving and communication?
Well, I tell you, the thing that I've learned, the best thing to overcome that is to go to dinner, go to sleep, wake up the next morning. Have you ever noticed that? And the next morning it's just solved? I mean, I seriously think there's something magical about that, is you just give it a little bit of time. I have noticed, if you're in a meeting with, 10 people or maybe 20 people, and there's all these ideas out there, most of that is people just want to participate. And they don't know exactly how, because maybe the experience isn't consistent with where we're going with things. But whatever happens, you go to sleep the next morning, it seems to all have settled out, and you come to a conclusion at breakfast and you keep moving.
Mine's almost the same, except I don't sleep. So, I literally am a 1 or 2 hour night person because I just really don't sleep. But I have this meditative hour or zone. It could be 3 or 4 hours in the night, and that's when it all comes together for me. So really the next day, by the time I wake up, I've got it all. But I need that alone time for percolation and assimilation of all these abstract concepts and to remember all that. And it's almost like I collate all that way. I think it's important to give yourself alone time away from your team, your client, your partner, the television, or even a book or anything that would be distracting you from just actually creating. And I do most of my drawings and things probably between like 2 and 5 in the morning. Most of all my sketches and all are done then, because that's when I'm not distracted by the rest of the world, and that's when I can really think. That's when my best ideas come.
Wonderful. Thank you all very much.
Thank you so much. That was amazing.